The silence of space was something Commander Elias Ward had grown used to. For months he had been stationed on Outpost K-17, a lonely human installation near the edge of explored territory. It was a small station, designed only for surveillance and communications, not for comfort. The corridors were narrow, the air recycled endlessly, and the meals came in sealed packs that all tasted nearly the same. Elias was a man of duty, and though the isolation wore on him, he never complained. He knew that the outpost was important. It was the first line of detection for anything entering human space from the unknown regions beyond. That meant long hours spent monitoring screens, scanning for energy signatures, and maintaining the station's fragile systems. Most days were uneventful. He would wake to the hum of the life support units, drink his strong but bitter coffee, and run diagnostics on the radar arrays. Sometimes he would read old books from the station's database or send short reports back to Earth Command. It was routine, repetitive, and lonely. But that night, the routine was broken. Elias was seated in the command chair, eyes half-focused on the glowing monitors, when a sharp alarm pierced the stillness. It was not the usual system error tone, but a shrill alert, an unauthorized docking sequence. His heart skipped. No scheduled ships were expected for weeks. He quickly tapped the controls. The external cameras showed something strange, a small vessel clinging to the side of the station like a wounded bird. Its hull was scarred, metal plating blackened from burns. One of its engines flickered weakly, the light sputtering out. "Who are you?" Elias whispered, though no one could hear. He checked the transponder codes. None matched human registry. The ship was completely foreign. Before he could decide whether to seal the airlocks, the docking clamps activated on their own. Somehow the ship had forced a manual connection. Elias reached for the emergency override, but froze. His training told him to treat all unknown contacts as possible threats. Yet another voice inside him whispered, "What if it is a survivor? What if someone needs help?" He kept his hand hovering over the control but did not press it. The airlock. Lights turned green. The chamber cycled, releasing a hiss of pressurized air. Elias rose to his feet, pulling his sidearm from its holster. His boots echoed against the metal floor as he moved toward the docking corridor. The inner door slid open. A figure stumbled through. At first glance, Elias thought it was a human woman, but only for a moment. Her frame was slender, her limbs longer than normal, and her skin held a faint silver sheen as though it reflected the dim station lights. Her eyes were large, glowing softly like twin sapphires. Her breathing was ragged, shallow, and her movements unsteady. She did not speak. She only looked at him once, her gaze filled with exhaustion and silent pleading. Her clothing was not clothing at all, but a kind of armored suit, if it could even be called that anymore. It was torn in several places, scorched from energy burns. She gripped at the edges, tugging them away as if the weight was unbearable. Piece by piece, the damaged armor fell to the floor with metallic clatters. Elias watched in shock, gun still in hand. His mind raced. An alien. A living alien. Not only had he made first contact, he was watching one collapse in front of him. Without warning, her legs gave way. Elias lunged forward instinctively, catching her before she struck the ground. Her body was light, far lighter than he expected. For a moment she seemed to struggle, her fingers clutching at his uniform. Then, weak and trembling, she shifted, climbing against him, clinging to his chest and shoulders as though his strength was her only anchor. She pressed against him, too weak to stand on her own. She had not said a single word since entering, yet her actions spoke volumes. She needed help, and she trusted him in this desperate moment. Elias carefully guided her toward the infirmary. The narrow halls made the journey slow, but he kept steady, allowing her to lean heavily against him. She was shivering, though the station's temperature was controlled. Perhaps it was shock or blood loss or exposure to radiation. He laid her on the medical cot. She tried to rise again, instinctively climbing onto him once more as though afraid of being left alone, but he gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here," Elias said softly. He doubted she understood, but the tone might matter, more than the words. The station's medical scanners whirred to life. Elias activated a general scan, letting the machines analyze her physiology. The screen filled with complex readings. Her biology was similar to humans in some ways. Oxygen, breathing, carbon-based but different in others. Internal organ placement varied, and her blood shimmered with metallic traces that humans lacked. The computer flagged signs of radiation burns, malnutrition, and physical trauma. She had clearly escaped something terrible. Elias opened the emergency supply kit, retrieving a thermal blanket and placing it over her. She relaxed slightly under the warmth, though her glowing eyes never left his face. For long minutes, the infirmary was silent except for the hum of the scanners. Elias found himself studying her more carefully. Despite the strange silver hue of her skin, her features were delicate, almost fragile. She looked like someone who had carried a burden too great for too long. He tried speaking again. "Can you understand me?" No reply. She tilted her head, blinking slowly, as if the sound of his voice was something distant and unfamiliar. Elias exhaled. He needed answers, but for now, survival came first. He administered a mild pain reliever through the auto-injector, guessing that it might be safe. Her body tensed at the injection, then slowly eased. Her eyes fluttered closed. For a moment, Elias thought she had slipped into unconsciousness. Then quietly, almost soundlessly, she murmured a single word. Not English. Not anything the translator could recognize. But the way she said it carried meaning, plea, desperation, and perhaps even hope. Elias leaned closer. "Don't worry," he said again. "You're not alone anymore." Hours passed. He remained in the infirmary, checking her vitals and running secondary scans. His reports to Earth Command went unsent. He could not risk transmitting signals that might be tracked. Instead, he focused entirely on his unexpected guest. In the stillness, his mind wandered. He thought about the long history of humanity's search for life. Countless theories had been proposed, but never had anyone truly expected first contact to happen here, on a forgotten outpost with only one man on duty. And yet, here she was, a living being from the stars, wounded, afraid, and trusting him enough to cling to him for safety. The reality was overwhelming. His duty told him to wait for orders, but his conscience told him something else. This was no ordinary encounter. This was someone running from danger, someone who had crossed the void in desperation. When she finally stirred again, her eyes opened slowly. She scanned the room, her expression uncertain, then found him sitting nearby. For the first time, she seemed calmer, though her body still trembled with weakness. Elias leaned forward. "Rest. You're safe." She did not answer with words. Instead, she slowly lifted one hand and touched his chest, right above the insignia of his uniform. It was a simple gesture, but Elias understood it. She recognized him as the one who had helped her, the one she could trust. And in that quiet moment, Elias knew his life, and perhaps the fate of humanity itself, had just changed forever. The infirmary was quiet except for the gentle hum of the life support systems and the faint beeping of monitors tracking Kalira's vitals. Commander Elias Ward sat nearby, his eyes scanning the screens while his thoughts raced. The alien woman had not spoken a single word, but her presence was impossible to ignore. She was fragile, yet there was an unmistakable determination in her eyes, a strength that had carried her across the void of space. Kalira stirred again, her silver-tinged skin glimmering faintly under the infirmary lights. She shifted slightly, struggling to sit upright. Instinctively, she reached for Elias, pressing against him as if seeking stability. He steadied her, keeping a careful hand on her shoulder. "You're stronger than you look," he said softly, though she could not understand the words. Yet, he felt as if she recognized the meaning behind his tone. The station's scanners had begun to analyze her physiology in more detail. Elias leaned closer to the console, studying the readings. Kalira's species was unlike anything humans had cataloged. Her internal organs resembled humans in placement but contained additional structures that glowed faintly on the scans. Her blood had metallic compounds that might allow her to resist radiation better than humans. Yet despite these differences, she was vulnerable. The scanners flagged extensive energy burns and signs of physical trauma. Her limbs were weak and her breathing uneven. Elias knew he had to act carefully. Any sudden movement could worsen her injuries. He moved to the supply cabinet, pulling out nutrient gels and rehydration packs. Gently, he held one to her lips. Kalira hesitated for a moment, then accepted it, swallowing slowly. Her eyes never left his face, and Elias sensed an unspoken connection forming between them. Hours passed. Kalira gradually regained some strength, though she was still too weak to stand on her own. At one point, she attempted to rise again, and, in her weakened state, she clung to him instinctively, pressing against his chest to steady herself. Elias understood. It was not a sign of dependency in a normal sense, but a survival instinct. She trusted him enough to use his strength to support her fragile body. He adjusted her position on the medical cot and activated the station's communication systems to scan for any incoming signals from her homeworld. Nothing appeared. She had traveled alone through hostile space, carrying whatever knowledge or data she had managed to preserve. Elias couldn't help but wonder what kind of enemy could drive a being so far from home. Whoever it was, they must have been relentless. As Kalira lay resting, Elias continued his analysis. He discovered something remarkable. Hidden within her body was a small storage device, no larger than a human wrist. Its design was unfamiliar, but the scanner suggested it contained encoded data. It could be maps, scientific research, or perhaps even tactical information. Whatever it was, Elias knew it might hold the key to understanding her people, or to protecting them from whatever threat had chased her across the stars. Curiosity mingled with caution. He wanted to access the data immediately, but he also knew he needed to prioritize her recovery. If she was too weak, she might not survive the process. Late into the artificial night cycle of the station, Kalira stirred again. This time, she attempted to communicate through gestures. She pointed at herself, then at Elias, then to the small device hidden beneath her armor. Elias leaned in, trying to understand. "You want me to help?" he asked softly. Her eyes brightened faintly, and she nodded once. It was a simple request, but it carried immense weight. She had entrusted him with the very thing her enemies sought. If the Zoran Dominion or whatever force had attacked her found it, the consequences could be catastrophic. Elias activated the scanner to read the device, but it emitted a subtle, protective pulse that prevented immediate access. It was encrypted in a way no human technology could decipher easily. Elias sighed. They would need time, patience, and perhaps her guidance to unlock it. Over the next few days, the relationship between Elias and Kalira became a careful dance of trust and understanding. She still did not speak in a recognizable language, but she began to respond to simple actions. When he offered water or nourishment, she took it with cautious gratitude. When he checked her vitals or adjusted her position, she would relax, allowing him to care for her without fear. One morning, she attempted to stand. Her legs trembled and Elias had to support her fully. Step by step, she moved across the infirmary, leaning heavily against him. Every motion was painstaking, yet her determination never faltered. She wanted to regain control of her own body, to reclaim some small measure of independence despite her injuries. Elias felt admiration and a strange sense of responsibility. He had protected countless humans in his career, but this was different. Kalira was not human, yet he felt the same duty, to ensure she survived. Kalira also showed glimpses of intelligence beyond survival. She began to interact with the station's equipment. Her long fingers moved delicately over control panels, analyzing readings, adjusting sensors, and even attempting minor repairs. It was clear she had advanced knowledge of technology, though not identical to human systems. Elias watched in amazement. Despite her injuries, she was adapting quickly to a new environment. Her species had survived in ways humans could not imagine, and her ability to learn and manipulate unfamiliar systems spoke volumes about their resilience. One evening, as the station's lights dimmed for the rest cycle, Kalira crawled onto the floor and lifted herself onto the control platform. She gestured toward the star map display, pointing at several distant points in the galaxy. Elias realized she was showing him routes, perhaps safe passages or locations of importance. It was the first time she had actively communicated something meaningful, and it filled Elias with cautious hope. Together, they could plan the next steps. But, first, she needed strength. Despite small victories, danger lingered. Sensors occasionally picked up unidentified signals in nearby space. Elias could not be sure if they were the same attackers who had pursued her, or something else entirely. Each blip reminded him of the fragility of their situation. Kalira was still weak, and the outpost could not withstand a serious assault, alone. Yet even in her vulnerable state, Kalira did not cower. She moved with quiet purpose, testing the controls, adjusting settings, and watching the external monitors. There was no fear in her gaze, only focus. Elias felt a strange sense of reassurance. Humanity had survived countless challenges because of the same qualities he now saw in her: courage, intelligence, and determination. It was clear that she had not traveled this far merely to survive. She carried knowledge, perhaps even hope, and Elias knew it was his duty to protect her until she could reclaim the ability to fight back. During one particularly tense cycle, Kalira suddenly twitched and climbed onto Elias again, not out of weakness but instinct. A sudden sensor alert indicated a vessel approaching at high speed. Elias reacted immediately, helping her steady herself as alarms blared. The craft was unidentified and moving too fast to be human. His pulse quickened. He guided Kalira behind a console, using it as cover. Her trust in him was absolute. He realized then that the bond between them was no longer merely practical. It was something deeper. She had come to rely on his strength, and he had accepted the responsibility without hesitation. The approaching craft altered course, then disappeared from the sensors, leaving only tension and uncertainty behind. Elias exhaled deeply, knowing that was only the beginning. Whoever had chased her this far would not give up easily. By the fourth day, Kalira's strength had improved noticeably. She could walk short distances with Elias's support and interact with the station systems more effectively. Yet her true capabilities remained a mystery. She still did not speak, still did not explain her origins or the enemies pursuing her. Elias realized that survival was only the first step. Understanding her and the knowledge she carried was the next. The data hidden within her could shift the balance of power in this sector of space. It was a responsibility he could not ignore. He began to prepare the station more carefully, setting traps, reviewing defense systems, and stockpiling resources. Kalira assisted when she could, guiding him toward adjustments and improvements, based on her knowledge of technology. Their combined efforts transformed the small outpost from a simple observation station into a modest but resilient stronghold. By the end of the week, Elias had come to see Kalira not just as a survivor, but as a partner. She had climbed on him out of necessity, leaned on him for strength, and trusted him with secrets he barely understood. In turn, he had learned to trust her instincts, her knowledge, and her courage. Together, they had established a fragile equilibrium. Kalira's recovery was ongoing, but she was determined to regain full strength. Elias, once isolated and burdened with routine, now felt a renewed sense of purpose. Protecting her was more than duty. It was an acknowledgement of humanity's highest quality, the willingness to defend and care for those in need, even when they were not of the same species. And as he watched her sleep that night, glowing faintly, under the station lights, he knew that their journey had only just begun. The weight of survival had forged a bond neither could ignore, a bond that might one day change the fate of entire worlds. The quiet of Outpost K-17 did not last long. Even as Kalira gained strength and Elias grew accustomed to the rhythm of their partnership, the station's sensors picked up unusual activity at the edges of their sector. A faint energy signature appeared first, a ripple in the void, subtle but undeniable, then another and another. Elias leaned over the console, his fingers tapping rapidly on the keyboard. These readings, they're too organized to be natural. Someone is coming. Kalira, standing nearby with her strength returning, tilted her head toward the display. Her glowing eyes flicked over the data, scanning patterns faster than Elias could. Though he could not understand her language, her movements conveyed urgency. She gestured to the sensors and then to the ship schematics displayed on the screen. Elias nodded, understanding her meaning. Whoever was approaching knew how to track her. The enemies that had forced her to flee her home were coming for her again. And now they were closing in on human space. He activated the outpost's emergency protocols. Lights switched to red, alerting the station systems to combat readiness. Automated defense turrets rotated into position, energy shields hummed to life, and the external cameras focused on the approaching signatures. Kalira moved to the main console, her long fingers brushing over controls Elias had never used. She began adjusting the shield frequencies, optimizing the energy output, and fine-tuning the targeting arrays. Elias watched in awe. Even in her weakened state, she was more capable than most engineers he had known. "This is incredible," he said quietly. "You know this technology better than I do." Kalira's eyes met his, and she tilted her head slightly, a nod of acknowledgement. No words were necessary. In this moment, their trust had become their greatest strength. The first vessel appeared on the station's external monitors shortly afterward. It was large, sleek, and armed with energy weapons that far outmatched the outpost's defenses. The markings were unfamiliar, but Elias felt a chill of recognition. These were the same types of vessels that had destroyed Kalira's home. "Hold steady," Elias whispered, gripping the console. Kalira pressed a hand lightly on the panel, her attention fixed on the enemy. Together they formed a silent team. The first salvo struck the outpost shields with a deafening hum, shaking the station violently. Sparks flew from the control panels and warning alarms blared. Elias felt the floor tremble beneath him. He gritted his teeth, refusing to panic. Kalira moved swiftly, directing shield energy to weak points and helping to reroute power to the damaged turrets. They were holding, but only just. Over the next few hours, the attack escalated. More enemy ships appeared, coordinating their assault with precision. The outpost, designed for observation rather than combat, began to show its vulnerabilities. Hull plates groaned under the strain, and life support systems flickered. Kalira, despite her injuries, stayed at the console, guiding Elias through adjustments that kept the station from collapsing. At one point, a small fragment from an energy blast punctured a secondary corridor. Elias moved to check it, only to find Kalira already there, analyzing the damage. "We can't keep this up forever," Elias said, his voice tense. "They're too strong." Kalira's response was immediate. She tapped on a series of panels and gestures pointed to a cluster of nearby asteroids on the sensor map. Then she drew an imaginary line, connecting the outpost to the asteroid field, and gestured again at the shields. Elias understood her meaning. They could use the terrain for cover, redirecting enemy fire and buying time. They worked together, through the night. Every attack brought the enemy closer to overwhelming them, but Elias and Kalira adapted, using every trick and advantage available. The outpost's energy shields were stretched to their limits, but the alien woman's knowledge allowed them to shift power in ways human engineers would never have considered. During a lull in the attack, Elias allowed himself a moment to study Kalira more closely. Her body had grown stronger over the past days. The burns on her arms and legs were healing, her breathing steadying, yet her eyes still carried a weight beyond her years, or her species' years. She had survived something terrible, and she carried that memory like a scar that could never fade. Elias felt a deep respect for her. Humanity had always valued courage and resilience, but he had never seen it mirrored so perfectly in an alien being. The enemy returned with renewed intensity at dawn. Energy beams struck the station with blinding brightness, shaking the walls and sending the lights flickering. Elias barked commands to the automated defenses while Kalira adjusted frequencies and recalibrated shields in real time. Their teamwork was seamless, almost instinctual. At one point, a small enemy craft breached the outer defense perimeter and zipped toward the station's central core. Elias raised his weapon, ready to intercept it manually, but Kalira was faster. She tapped into the station's automated systems and activated a gravity field trap that sent the enemy vessel spinning harmlessly into space. Elias exhaled sharply. "I don't know what we'd do without you," he said. Kalira only shook her head, then gestured at the incoming ships. Words were not needed. The fight continued. By midday, the outpost had sustained damage, but it had also inflicted significant losses on the attackers. One by one, enemy ships retreated, their attacks less coordinated than before. Elias realized that Kalira's data, the star maps, the tactical knowledge embedded in her device, gave them an edge. She knew where the attackers would strike, how they would maneuver, and how to counter it. Still, the fight was far from over. The Zoran Dominion, as Elias thought of them, would not give up. They had pursued her across light years of space, and they would not stop until she was captured or killed. During a brief moment of calm, Kalira approached Elias, her steps careful but determined. She gestured at the damaged panels and then at herself, indicating that she could help repair them, but she would need assistance. Elias nodded. They worked side by side, reconnecting circuits, reinforcing shields, and rerouting power. It was exhausting work, but Elias felt a strange exhilaration. The station was no longer just an outpost, it had become a battlefield where human courage and alien ingenuity combined. Each successful repair, each repelled attack was a small victory that reminded him why humans could survive even in the harshest conditions. By evening, both were covered in sweat and dust from the battle, but Kalira moved with renewed confidence. She demonstrated how to recalibrate the targeting arrays more efficiently, her gestures precise and deliberate. Elias followed her instructions, marveling at her skill. She was teaching him, and in turn he realized he was learning from her in ways he could never have imagined. As night fell over the outpost, the final enemy wave arrived. A massive ship loomed in the sensors, larger than any they had seen before. Its weapons glowed with a menacing energy signature, and Elias knew that this would be the decisive confrontation. Kalira moved to his side, placing a hand on his arm. It was a simple gesture, but it carried meaning, trust, solidarity, and a shared determination to face what came next. Elias met her gaze. "We'll hold them," he said. He did not doubt it, not with her by his side. The battle raged through the night. The outpost shuddered under repeated strikes, but the coordinated efforts of human and alien proved formidable. Kalira guided the energy shields with precision, redirecting power to areas under the most stress. Elias coordinated the automated turrets, focusing fire where it would be most effective. Despite their exhaustion, they did not falter. Every attack they repelled, every maneuver they executed, reinforced the truth that humans could rise to any challenge. Kalira's knowledge and courage complemented Elias's strategic thinking and determination, creating a partnership neither had expected, but both relied upon completely. Finally, as dawn broke over the distant stars, the enemy fleet withdrew. The remaining ships retreated into the void, their numbers diminished and their morale shaken. Outpost K-17 had survived, battered but intact. Elias sank into his chair, running a hand over his face. Kalira leaned against the console beside him, breathing heavily but steady. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. It was subtle, but Elias recognized it as a sign of relief, and perhaps pride. In the aftermath, Elias walked through the station, checking for damage and ensuring all systems were stable. Kalira followed, her steps now more confident, her body fully supported but independent. The outpost had survived against overwhelming odds, and it had done so because of their combined efforts. Elias realized something profound. Humanity had always believed in its ability to endure, to innovate, to rise above challenges. In Kalira, he saw those same qualities reflected, though shaped by a different world. Together, they had defended the outpost, not as human and alien, but as two beings united by courage, intelligence, and the will to survive. As they looked out at the stars, Elias knew that this battle was only the beginning. The Zoran Dominion would return, stronger and more determined. But now he was not alone. Kalira was by his side, a living reminder that survival required partnership, trust, and unyielding resolve. And together, they were ready for whatever came next. The battle had ended, but Outpost K-17 bore the scars of the fight. Hull plates were dented, corridors scorched, and sparks flickered from damaged circuits. Elias walked through the station, his boots echoing against the metal floors, scanning for survivors and checking the integrity of the systems. Kalira moved beside him, her steps confident and steady. Though still recovering, she had proven herself not only capable but indispensable in the defense of the outpost. Elias paused in the central control room. The large view screen displayed empty space, but he knew better than to assume the danger had passed. The Zoran Dominion had retreated, for now, but their presence lingered like a shadow over human territory. Elias had fought battles before, but this was different. This was not about conquest or politics. This was about survival, and Kalira's people depended on him now as much as he depended on her knowledge. He turned to her. "They'll be back," he said quietly. She nodded, understanding the gravity of his words even without speech. Her glowing eyes held the same determination she had shown during the fight, but there was something more, a willingness to take the next step, whatever it might cost. Elias moved to the console, reviewing sensor data and energy logs. The outpost had survived but not unscathed. Power levels fluctuated, and structural weaknesses had appeared in key areas. He realized that repairing the station would take time, and in that time the Dominion could return in even greater numbers. Kalira stepped closer, pointing to the external map and then gesturing toward the larger fleet of human ships in orbit. She made a series of hand motions, illustrating potential defensive strategies, routes for escape, and areas of vulnerability in the outpost. Elias followed her guidance, noting the brilliance of her tactical mind. "This is more than just survival," he murmured. "We need to prepare for them, and we need to make a choice. Do we hold this outpost or do we retreat?" Kalira's gaze met his, unflinching. She made no motion toward retreat. Her message was clear. Retreat was not an option. Over the next several hours, Elias and Kalira worked side by side. They repaired damaged shields, recalibrated sensors, and rerouted energy through auxiliary systems. Every adjustment required precision, and every decision carried weight. The station's automated defenses were partially functional, but human. Hands and alien knowledge together made them formidable. As they worked, Elias could not help but reflect on the meaning of his choice. Earth Command would not likely send reinforcements. The outpost was at the edge of human territory, isolated and considered expendable. If he abandoned it now, Kalira would be left vulnerable, her people's secrets captured by the Dominion. Yet if he stayed, he risked the station and perhaps his life, against an enemy far superior in numbers and firepower. He looked at Kalira, who was working with silent intensity. Her gestures were confident, her movements decisive. Despite the language barrier, Elias felt her resolve radiating toward him. She trusted him, and he realized he could not betray that trust. Evening fell, and the station's dim lights cast long shadows across the control room. Elias took a moment to rest, running a hand over his face. Kalira moved to the observation window, staring out at the distant stars. For a moment, she seemed reflective, her glowing eyes scanning the void, as if searching for something beyond the immediate danger. Elias joined her, standing silently. "We can't just sit here waiting for them to come back," he said. "We have to act. We have to stand." Kalira turned toward him, tilting her head. The gesture was almost human. In its simplicity, yet it carried profound meaning. She understood the stakes. Standing together meant risk, but it also meant the chance to protect what mattered most. The choice became clearer as they reviewed the data Kalira had brought with her. The small storage device embedded in her armor contained more than just apps. It held tactical information about Dominion ships, energy signatures, and weak points in their fleets. This knowledge could give humans the upper hand, but only if they acted. Elias realized that waiting for reinforcements was not an option. They had to use what they had, here and now, to prepare the station for the inevitable return of the Dominion. The choice was stark. Abandon the outpost and survive, or stand their ground and fight with everything they had. He looked at Kalira. "We stand," he said firmly. "We defend this station. We defend your people." Her eyes glowed brighter, at his words a silent affirmation. Together they began to implement a plan that would make Outpost K-17 more than a simple observation station. It would become a fortress, a symbol of human courage and alien ingenuity united. The next morning, the station was a hive of activity. Elias and Kalira coordinated repairs, reinforced shields, and trained the automated defenses to respond faster and more accurately. Kalira demonstrated techniques humans had never used before, showing Elias how to optimize energy flow to weapons, systems, and shields. During a break, Elias examined her more closely. She moved with a grace that suggested agility beyond human norms. Every gesture, every movement seemed calculated and purposeful. Yet there was also a vulnerability beneath her strength, a reminder of the peril she had faced and the sacrifices she had made. "You've come a long way," Elias said quietly. She looked at him, and though she did not speak, her eyes conveyed acknowledgement and trust. As they worked, sensors detected another fleet entering the sector. This time the vessels were larger, better armed, and moving with clear intent. Elias and Kalira exchanged a glance. There was no hesitation. They had prepared as best they could, and now they would face the enemy together. Kalira gestured toward the station's energy weapons, showing Elias the optimal firing sequences and shield adjustments. They moved with precision, anticipating each attack and countering it before it struck. The outpost shuddered under the assault, but it held. Elias felt a surge of pride and determination. Humanity had always faced overwhelming odds and risen above them. Here, in the far reaches of space, that same courage was alive, manifested in both human and alien, standing together against a common threat. The battle was intense, but Elias and Kalira's preparation paid off. Enemy vessels struck repeatedly, only to be repelled by the combined human and alien defenses. The station's shields held, the turrets fired with deadly accuracy, and Kalira's knowledge of the Dominion's tactics allowed them to anticipate maneuvers before they happened. During a brief lull, Elias checked the station's internal systems. Power was holding steady, although the strain was immense. Kalira joined him, pointing to a section of the station that could be reinforced further. Together, they moved through the corridors, strengthening weak points, rerouting power, and ensuring every system was operational. By the time night fell again, both Elias and Kalira were exhausted, yet they stood ready. The outpost was damaged but functional, its defenses stronger than they had been before the first attack. Every repair, every adjustment, was a testament to their determination and cooperation. Elias looked at Kalira. "We made the choice to stand," he said softly. "And we did it. Together." Kalira's eyes glowed faintly, a signal of acknowledgement. She had trusted him to make the right decision, and he had. The bond between them had grown stronger, forged in the fires of battle and tempered by mutual respect and trust. As they settled in for rest, Elias reflected on the day's events. The choice to stand had been difficult, filled with risk and uncertainty. Yet it had also demonstrated humanity's greatest qualities: courage, resilience, and the willingness to protect others, even at great personal cost. Kalira had shown him that these qualities were not uniquely human. They could exist in any being willing to fight for what was right. The stars outside the observation window seemed brighter now, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the challenges yet to come. Elias knew that the Dominion would not give up. that further battles lay ahead. But he also knew that they had proven something important. Humans and their allies could stand against impossible odds and survive. Kalira moved beside him, her presence steady and reassuring. Together they had made the choice to stand, and that choice had defined the fate of the outpost and the first steps of what might become a larger struggle for survival and hope. And in that quiet moment, Elias realized that standing was not just a choice of strategy. It was a declaration of humanity's highest principle: to face danger, protect the vulnerable, and fight for what is right, no matter the odds. The first light of dawn crept across the cold metal floors of Outpost K-17. Commander Elias Ward and Kalira stood side by side in the observation deck, gazing out at the empty void. For now, the Zoran Dominion had retreated, but both knew this. Respite was temporary. The enemy would return, stronger, faster, and more determined than ever. Elias clenched his fists, his mind racing through calculations and possibilities. The station had survived multiple assaults, but it could not endure another full-scale attack without reinforcements. Kalira, though still recovering, had regained much of her strength. Her glowing eyes scanned the star systems, searching for potential threats but also for hope. "They'll come back," Elias said quietly. She nodded, understanding without words. Her presence was a reminder of why he had chosen to stand, to fight, and to protect. Together they had transformed a small observation station into a fortress capable of resisting overwhelming odds. The next few hours were spent preparing for the inevitable return of the Dominion. Kalira demonstrated tactics that humans had never seen before. She adjusted shield frequencies, rerouted energy to optimize the defensive turrets, and modified the station's sensors to detect enemy cloaking technologies. Elias followed her instructions closely, implementing each adjustment with precision. While they worked, Elias reflected on how far they had come. Kalira had not only survived the journey across space, but had also shared her knowledge willingly. The trust between them had grown into a powerful partnership, one that combined human determination with alien ingenuity. "Your people, they've survived many challenges," Elias said, his voice soft. She looked at him, her glowing eyes meeting his, and he felt an understanding pass between them. Survival was not just instinct. It was a skill, a discipline, and a responsibility. By mid-morning, the station was ready. Turrets were fully operational, shields at maximum strength and energy reserves optimized. Elias and Kalira reviewed the tactical map again, noting potential weak points and escape routes. Every detail mattered. Every decision could mean the difference between life and death. Then the sensors picked up the approaching fleet. This time, it was larger and more organized than before. The Dominion ships moved with precision, their energy weapons glowing ominously in the void. Elias felt a surge of tension, but also determination. This was the moment their preparation would be tested. Kalira gestured toward the turrets and then at the shields, her movements precise. Elias followed her lead, coordinating with the station's automated systems. Together they created a defensive grid capable of adapting to the enemy's attacks. The first salvo struck with blinding intensity. Energy beams hit the stations, shields sending vibrations through the metal floors. Sparks flew from consoles and alarms blared across the corridors. Elias remained focused, issuing commands to reroute power and activate secondary defenses. Kalira adjusted shield harmonics, countering the energy pulses with astonishing accuracy. The Dominion fleet pressed the attack relentlessly. One of their ships broke through the outer defense perimeter, heading straight for the central core. Elias grabbed his weapon, ready to intercept it manually. Kalira acted faster. She activated a localized gravity field, sending the vessel spinning harmlessly into space. The two exchanged a brief glance, a silent acknowledgement of their teamwork. Hours passed in a blur of energy beams, shields, and rapid adjustments. Each assault tested the limits of the station and the resolve of its defenders. Elias felt fatigue, gnawing at him, but he ignored it. Every moment was crucial. Every decision mattered. During a brief pause in the fighting, Elias reviewed the data Kalira had brought with her. The small storage device contained tactical information, star maps, and detailed analyses of Dominion ships. Accessing it allowed them to anticipate enemy movements, predict attack patterns, and target weak points. Kalira guided him through the complex information, gesturing and using her advanced understanding of technology to simplify the strategies. "It's incredible," Elias said, scanning the display. "With this we can win." She only nodded, her focus returning immediately to the incoming attacks. As the Dominion launched another wave, the station's defenses fired with precision. The turrets struck enemy ships at critical points, shields, absorbed powerful energy beams, and the station's hull held firm. Elias and Kalira moved together like a single entity, their actions synchronized through trust and necessity. The battle reached its peak when the Dominion flagship emerged from the outer edge of the system. It was massive, bristling with energy cannons and moving with lethal purpose. Elias felt a chill, but Kalira's presence steadied him. She pointed to the tactical display, indicating a weak point on the flagship's energy shield. "Target that," Elias said, relaying the instructions to the station's turrets. The automated weapons fired in unison, striking precisely at the vulnerability Kalira had indicated. Energy beams tore through the flagship's defenses, causing it to falter. The Dominion forces faltered, their formations breaking under the unexpected resistance. Elias allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had faced overwhelming odds before, and now, with Kalira's guidance, they were proving once again that courage, intelligence, and cooperation could turn the tide. The Dominion fleet retreated in disarray, their attacks less coordinated and weaker with each pass. The station had survived, and the enemy had been repelled, at least for now. Elias and Kalira stood in the control room, watching the last of the ships disappear into the void. Their bodies were exhausted, but their spirits were unbroken. Kalira turned to Elias, her glowing eyes reflecting relief and gratitude. For the first time, she made a simple sound that resembled a word. "Friend." Elias felt a wave of warmth at the recognition. They had survived together, fought together, and now they had triumphed together. After the battle, Elias began repairing the outpost more thoroughly. Hull damage, shield systems, and power conduits all needed attention. Kalira assisted, demonstrating advanced repair techniques that humans had never encountered. Her knowledge and adaptability allowed them to restore the station faster than Elias had imagined possible. As the repairs progressed, Elias realized the importance of the bond they had formed. Kalira was no longer just a survivor. She was an ally, a teacher, and a symbol of what humans could achieve when they extended trust and courage beyond their own species. Once the station was stabilized, Elias and Kalira reviewed the data from the storage device again. It revealed not only tactical information, but also details about the Zoran Dominion's weaknesses, vulnerabilities that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity now had the tools to resist, and perhaps even to defend other species. From the Dominion's relentless pursuit, Elias felt a surge of hope. The universe was vast, full of dangers and challenges, but also full of potential allies and untapped strength. Kalira had brought more than knowledge. She had brought a reminder of what humanity could be: courageous, intelligent, and capable of protecting those who could not protect themselves. The two spent the following days preparing the station for future threats. They trained, reinforced defenses, and shared knowledge. Kalira began teaching Elias advanced strategies while Elias taught her human techniques and tactics. Together they formed a partnership that was both practical and inspiring, a combination of human ingenuity and alien expertise that made them formidable. At night they would stand at the observation deck gazing at the stars. Elias thought about the long journey ahead. The Zoran Dominion would return, but he no longer feared the future. With Kalira at his side, he felt capable of facing any challenge. The outpost was no longer just a station, it was a symbol of resistance, courage, and the unbreakable bond between allies. One evening, as the artificial light dimmed to mimic nightfall, Kalira approached Elias. She gestured toward the stars, then toward the station, then finally to herself. Elias understood. She was ready to continue the fight, to reclaim the freedom her people had lost, and to ensure that no other species would face the same danger. He placed a hand on the console, feeling the steady hum of energy beneath it. "We'll do it together," he said. "Whatever comes, we stand, we fight, and we protect." Kalira's glowing eyes met his, a silent promise passing between them. The final test came soon after. Sensors picked up a lone Dominion vessel attempting a reconnaissance sweep. Elias and Kalira activated the station's defenses, coordinating, a strategy that used both human ingenuity and alien tactics. They lured the ship into a trap, exploiting weaknesses that only Kalira's knowledge could reveal. Energy beams struck precise points, shields redirected attacks, and the vessel was forced to retreat. Victory was small, but it was significant. It proved that with courage, intelligence, and cooperation, even overwhelming odds could be overcome. Elias felt a deep satisfaction, not just for the tactical win, but for the principles it represented. Humanity, he realized, could inspire others, protect the vulnerable, and stand firm against any threat. As the battle concluded and the station returned to calm, Elias looked at Kalira. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a partner, a friend, and a testament to the strength that could be forged when beings work together. The stars stretched infinitely before them, a reminder of both danger and possibility. Elias knew that the future held